The ripple effect of President Trump's tariffs continue to impact local small businesses and forcing them to find ways to avoid raising prices.
That's right. On your sites, Christine Lazar joining us now with a look at how the trade war is really affecting them nearly 4 months in. Christine.
Yeah, well, we all kind of have this tariff whiplash, right? Not knowing what's coming or going. And imagine how businesses feel, especially when they're trying not to raise their prices. So the 90-day pause on President Trump's reciprocal tariffs will expire in about 2 weeks. But the baseline 10% tariff on all imports remains in effect, as well as a 30% tariff on Chinese-made goods. As a result, one local e-commerce expert told me many retailers have no choice but to raise their prices. Working out of his home office in Ventura, Sean Herwalt is a supply chain expert. He currently works for a wellness company called Novos. And when rumblings of a trade war began last winter, he sprung into action.
So part of what I did was worked ahead to order ahead to kind of store as much material as I could.
But that extra inventory will run out this summer. You're an American-made company, but you're still impacted by these tariffs.
So we're a global business in the sense that we have customers all over the world. So while we're thinking through this with an American lens, there's always the other side of the coin, which could be like the retaliatory tariffs from other countries as we get into kind of this dynamic between our government and theirs.
Have costs gone up for your company?
Definitely, yeah, yep. So we saw about an 8% increase across the board.
Herwalt says Novos has absorbed the extra cost from tariffs, choosing to not pass them along to customers. But they've already noticed a shift in consumer behavior.
So there's a lot of unknown, and that's really what kind of keeps the supply chain individual up at night. I kind of compare it to like if someone were in a store shopping and they take something off the shelf, by the time they go to check out, the price has already changed and nothing's the same. So that's such a different dynamic that we haven't seen.
Anvu Lieberman is the head of commerce at Cart.com and an e-commerce expert. She works in downtown LA.
We recently hosted an event for 40 different retail executives, and I have to say 47% have already raised prices. 29% are going to change where they're sourcing all their products. I would say on average, we've raised prices 10 to 15% since May.
Vu Lieberman says it's not because businesses are getting greedy.
If you are just in apparel, your average gross margin is probably 50%. If you think about full price, then sale, then final sale, right? Imagine you have a 30% tariff. How much do you have left for marketing? How much do you have left for shipping, warehousing? It's just not feasible.
The 90-day pause hasn't been long enough, according to Vu Lieberman.
So imagine normally your production timeline and your planning is 6 to 8 months. Now you're only giving me 3 months to work. And then, so I then have to book the factories where it wasn't booked before. We don't even know if it's available. Then the factories pay overtime to all the employees, so they can get the orders out. And then there's surge pricing for shipping. So really what you thought you were going to save, you're actually not saving at all.
And what about moving everything to the States to avoid tariffs?
For the 40 executives that we interviewed or polled, only 30% are really thinking there's going to be an increase of sourcing back into the U.S., manufacturing back into the U.S., because there's some things that are just not feasible. If you're selling a hair barrette that's like 99 cents, are you really going to make it in the States?
So what does this mean for the consumer as we head into back-to-school shopping and then the holiday shopping season? Well, experts I spoke with say there's really no way for the cost to not be passed along to the consumer because all the stockpiling that many of these companies have done to ride out the trade war will likely be depleted by then. Amy and Chris, back to you.
Thank you so much, Christine.